Welcome to the Untold X, where we reveal the truths the world doesn't want you to hear. Today we expose one of the deepest cultural shifts of our time, the quiet war on masculinity. Why are strong, grounded men being labeled toxic? Why are women rejecting conservative values? And what happens when men stop playing along? Let's break it down. This story affects all of us more than we think. Society is currently witnessing a profound reevaluation of what it means to be a man. This is not merely an academic debate confined to university halls. It touches the very core of individual identity for countless men. Many find themselves adrift in a sea of conflicting messages, uncertain of their roles and responsibilities in the modern world. The very definition of manhood appears to be in constant flux, creating a confusing and frequently hostile environment. This investigation will endeavor to explore this turbulent landscape with seriousness. We aim to understand the potent forces at play in this cultural moment. We seek to offer a measure of clarity amidst the pervasive ideological fog that clouds sound judgment. The stakes, it must be said, are extraordinarily high, both for individuals struggling to find their footing and for the broader society that depends on stable, responsible men. The term traditional masculinity itself has unfortunately become a battleground in contemporary discourse. For some, it evokes images of strength, unwavering responsibility, and admirable virtue. For others, however, it has been twisted into a pejorative shorthand for oppression, backwardness, and the now ubiquitous label of toxicity. This stark polarization is deeply unhelpful and intellectually lazy. It actively prevents any nuanced discussion and genuine understanding of a complex human phenomenon. We must therefore take it upon ourselves to dissect what traditional masculinity truly entails, moving beyond the simplistic caricatures peddled by its critics. This requires a careful examination of its historical expression and its functional purpose within societies. Only then can we properly assess its value and relevance in the contemporary world. To ignore this necessary complexity is to choose a path towards further confusion and societal fragmentation. Consider, for example, the political sphere, where public figures are often presented as models for new forms of masculinity. Individuals like Tim Walz are sometimes highlighted as redefining manhood, with his emphasis on a gentle masculinity and being an in-touch father. This approach is said to resonate positively with some younger demographics, particularly Gen Z, who are reported to prefer progressive, compassion-based masculinity. This narrative, however, often implicitly or quite explicitly devalues other, more traditional expressions of manhood. It subtly suggests that traits historically admired and functionally necessary, such as stoicism or assertiveness, are now somehow deficient or even harmful. This cultural shift profoundly impacts how young men perceive themselves, their potential, and their aspirations for the future, creating considerable pressure. This investigation will rigorously argue that while some critiques of genuinely extreme or harmful behaviors associated with some men are valid, a wholesale rejection of traditional masculine values is a perilous and misguided endeavor. These values, forged over millennia, have deep roots in human nature and have served crucial functions in the development and maintenance of civilizations. They have provided men with a robust sense of purpose and a clear framework for meaningful contribution to their families and communities. To discard them lightly, swayed by fleeting ideological trends, is to risk profound societal instability and widespread personal despair. We urgently need to understand the untold story, the positive and constructive aspects of traditional masculinity that are so often ignored or maliciously distorted in current conversations. Reclaiming these values thoughtfully and responsibly is an essential task for our time. What precisely do we mean when we speak of traditional conservative masculinity? It is certainly not a monolithic, unchanging entity, as some critics might carelessly suggest. Yet, despite variations across cultures and historical epochs, certain core tenets consistently emerge as foundational. Duty is undoubtedly a primary concept within this framework. This refers to the profound sense of obligation to something larger and more enduring than oneself. This obligation could be directed towards one's family, one's immediate community, or a set of timeless moral principles. This deeply felt sense of duty provides essential direction and imbues life with meaning. It calls men to serve, to build, and to contribute significantly. Without it, individuals can easily become lost in shallow, self-centered pursuits, leading to a life devoid of true substance. Discipline stands as another crucial pillar supporting the edifice of traditional masculinity. This encompasses self-control, unwavering resilience, and the hard-won ability to endure significant hardship without breaking. Traditional masculinity highly values the man who can effectively master his own impulses and desires. He is the man who can delay immediate gratification in pursuit of a greater, more distant purpose. He can face profound adversity with fortitude, without crumbling under pressure or surrendering to despair. This internal strength, this cultivated fortitude, is absolutely essential for achieving difficult and worthwhile goals. It is also vital for providing a bedrock of stability to those around him, particularly his family and dependents. The diligent development of discipline is a lifelong, arduous endeavor, not some anachronistic or outdated notion to be casually dismissed. The role of provider has long been absolutely central to the masculine identity across diverse cultures. This is not merely about financial provision, though that is often a significant and necessary component. More broadly, it is about providing security in all its forms: physical safety, emotional stability, and reliable support. It means taking full and uncomplaining responsibility for the well-being of one's dependents and loved ones. This powerful drive to provide can be an incredibly potent motivator for personal achievement, diligent hard work, and responsible stewardship of resources. It fosters a profound sense of competence, usefulness, and self-worth in a man. To denigrate this fundamental aspiration, as is increasingly common, is to fundamentally misunderstand a deep-seated and constructive human drive. Finally, the protector role is deeply and inextricably ingrained in the traditional masculine psyche. This involves the solemn duty of safeguarding the vulnerable, defending one's family and community from harm, and courageously standing up for what is right and just. It requires considerable courage, encompassing both physical bravery in the face of danger and moral courage in the face of social pressure. The protector is the man who is willing to confront threats directly and to make significant personal sacrifices for the good of others. This instinct, far from being inherently toxic as alleged, is absolutely essential for human survival and societal flourishing. When channeled appropriately and guided by wisdom, it is a powerful force for immense good in the world. These tenets, duty, discipline, provision, and protection, form the very bedrock of a robust, constructive, and admirable masculinity. Why is it that these historically valued and societally crucial traits are now under such sustained and often vitriolic attack? Several powerful cultural forces are demonstrably at play in this unfortunate development. Pop culture, for instance, frequently and consistently portrays traditional men in a strikingly negative light. They are often depicted as oafish, emotionally stunted, incompetent, or even tyrannical figures deserving of ridicule or contempt. Conversely, alternative or redefined masculinities are often celebrated, sometimes uncritically and without due consideration for their long-term viability or societal impact. This constant barrage of negative imagery and biased narratives inevitably shapes public perceptions, especially among impressionable young people. It insidiously creates a cultural climate where traditional expressions of manhood are automatically viewed with suspicion or disdain, offering few positive role models. Academia, particularly certain departments within the humanities and social sciences, has also played a significant role in this ideological shift. Certain influential academic theories have actively sought to pathologize traditional masculinity, framing it as inherently problematic. Concepts such as toxic masculinity, which perhaps initially served to critique genuinely harmful excesses of behavior, have been dramatically broadened in scope. They are now frequently employed as a cudgel to condemn the very essence of masculinity itself. Assertiveness might be reflexively labeled as aggression. Stoicism, a virtue prized for centuries, might be ignorantly misconstrued as emotional unavailability or repression. As noted in publications like Miss Magazine, universities are increasingly promoting notions of gender fluidity that aggressively reject binary roles, further unsettling established norms and creating confusion for young men. The pervasive narrative often suggests, quite erroneously, that these traditional masculine traits are inherently and inextricably linked to various forms of social injustice or oppression. This is a simplistic, reductionist, and often deliberately misleading argument. It culpably fails to distinguish between the virtuous and constructive expression of essential masculine qualities and their potential perversion or misuse by flawed individuals. Strength, for example, can be employed to protect the innocent or, alternatively, to dominate the weak. discipline can lead to remarkable achievement or, if misapplied, to unthinking rigidity. The problem then lies not in the traits themselves but in their application and the moral grounding or lack thereof of the individual. Yet this crucial nuance is frequently and conveniently lost in the cacophony of contemporary discourse. This relentless scrutiny is not without serious and damaging consequences for men and for society. It creates a formidable cultural gauntlet that men, particularly young men, are forced to navigate. A sincere adherence to traditional values such as responsibility or protectiveness can lead to social disapproval, ridicule, or even outright ostracization in certain circles. Young men in particular may feel intense pressure to abandon these time-tested values simply to gain acceptance or avoid censure. This insidious pressure is significantly amplified by the dynamics of social media, where conformity is often heavily rewarded and dissent is swiftly punished. The inevitable result is a growing sense of confusion, alienation, and resentment among men who do not or cannot conform to the newly prescribed and often ill-defined molds. The dramatically changing perceptions of masculinity profoundly impact the landscape of intimate relationships and contemporary dating dynamics. What women seek in partners, or more accurately, what mainstream culture tells them they should seek, is undergoing a significant transformation. This can create a jarring mismatch between men who were raised with and embody traditional values, and the often conflicting expectations they encounter in the dating world. For example, the traditional provider role, once widely accepted and even admired as a mark of responsibility, is now sometimes viewed with deep suspicion. It might be unfairly interpreted as an attempt to exert undue control or to perpetuate outdated power imbalances, rather than as a genuine expression of care, commitment, and responsibility towards a partner and family. The increasing emphasis on gentle masculinity, as sometimes exemplified by public figures like Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, reflects this ongoing cultural shift. While compassion, empathy, and emotional expressiveness are undoubtedly valuable human qualities for both men and women, the prevailing narrative can inadvertently devalue other equally important masculine strengths. Men who are naturally more stoic, reserved, or action-oriented in their disposition might consequently feel inadequate or out of step with current trends. They might struggle to reconcile their inherent nature and their learned values with these evolving relational expectations. This internal conflict can lead to significant difficulties in forming and maintaining stable, fulfilling relationships, fostering a pervasive sense of being fundamentally misunderstood or unappreciated by potential partners. Dating applications and the nature of online interactions further complicate these already challenging matters. Superficial judgments based on brief profiles and fleeting impressions become commonplace, reducing individuals to a checklist of desirable or undesirable traits. Men might find that traditionally masculine characteristics, such as a natural inclination to lead, to solve problems directly, or to offer protection, are not always well received or understood in these contexts. They may encounter profiles explicitly stating preferences against such traits, effectively narrowing their dating pool. This can lead to a demoralizing feeling that their authentic way of being a man is inherently undesirable or even objectionable. The search for a partner who genuinely appreciates and respects traditional values can thus become an arduous and often discouraging one. This challenging dynamic is certainly not helped by the often skewed media portrayals of relationships and gender roles. Frequently, traditional men are depicted as obstacles to female empowerment, personal growth, or individual fulfillment. The ideal partner in many modern narratives is often portrayed as someone who is accommodating to the point of deference, rather than a strong, complementary figure. While genuine partnership and equality are vital components of any healthy relationship, this particular narrative can subtly undermine the complementary roles and distinct strengths that many individuals still value and seek. It risks creating an environment where men feel they must diminish or suppress their innate masculinity in order to be deemed acceptable or lovable in a relationship, a precarious foundation for any lasting intimacy. Echoes from the fray personal stories of masculine dislocation. The societal shift regarding masculinity is not some abstract academic concept. It has tangible, often painful effects on the lives of individual men. Consider the reported experience of Daniel, a 30-year-old engineer. He feels that his natural and well-intentioned inclination to provide for and protect those he cares about is frequently misinterpreted by others. He describes feeling actively shamed in various social circles for expressing these traditionally masculine traits, which he views as positive. His sincere desire to be a steadfast, reliable partner is sometimes perceived as old-fashioned, controlling, or even threatening. This leaves him feeling confused, frustrated, and disheartened about how to navigate the complexities of modern relationships while remaining true to his own values. His experience, sadly, is far from unique in today's world. Then there is the account of Kareem, a 27-year-old conservative Muslim. His faith and cultural background provide him with a clear framework that emphasizes distinct masculine roles and responsibilities, which he embraces. However, he finds these deeply held values increasingly at odds with prevailing mainstream Western narratives about gender. He speaks of feeling like an outsider, even in contexts where he might reasonably expect a degree of understanding or tolerance for his beliefs. The cultural pressure to conform to secular progressive ideals of masculinity is immense and often unrelenting. This creates a significant internal conflict between his deeply held convictions and the prevailing social winds, forcing him to constantly justify his worldview. Miguel, a 34-year-old, offers yet another poignant perspective on this issue. He was raised by his family to be stoic, self-reliant, and resilient in the face of adversity. These were qualities his family deeply admired and actively instilled in him from a young age as virtues. Now, as an adult, he finds these very same traits frequently labeled by others as indicative of emotional repression or as hallmarks of so-called toxic masculinity. He recounts instances where his attempts to solve problems directly and pragmatically, rather than engaging in extensive emotional discussion, were met with criticism and misunderstanding. This makes him question his own upbringing and his natural ingrained tendencies, leading to self-doubt and a sense of unease about his place. These anecdotes, drawn from the reported experiences of real men, paint a clear and troubling picture. Many men, in fact, feel marginalized, profoundly misunderstood, and even unfairly attacked for adhering to what they perceive as traditional masculine values. They are not extremists or misogynists as they are often caricatured. They are, by and large, ordinary men attempting to live lives of purpose, integrity, and responsibility. The constant, often unthinking critique of their core identity is undeniably taking a significant psychological toll. It is absolutely crucial that society begins to listen to these voices with an open mind. Ignoring their legitimate experiences and concerns only serves to deepen the existing divide and exacerbate the underlying problem. Their stories are vital to understanding the true human cost of this ongoing cultural shift. The weight of change, psychological impacts on modern men, the relentless questioning and frequent, often harsh condemnation of traditional masculinity exact a significant and measurable psychological toll on men. Men are not, despite some portrayals, immune to social pressure, persistent criticism, or feelings of inadequacy. When core aspects of their identity, things they have been taught to value, are consistently framed as negative, harmful, or outdated, it can lead to profound and lasting distress. One of the most alarming consequences of this cultural climate is a demonstrable rise in male loneliness. If traditional avenues for connection, purpose, and social validation are systematically devalued or closed off, many men may struggle to find their place in the world, leading to painful isolation, which is a serious mental health concern that cannot be ignored. Identity confusion is another prevalent and deeply troubling issue stemming from this environment. If society repeatedly tells a young man that his natural inclinations, perhaps towards assertiveness, protectiveness, or the ambition to provide, are somehow toxic or socially unacceptable, what is he to make of himself? He may begin to feel a deep sense of shame or guilt for traits that are an intrinsic part of his being, traits he cannot easily change or discard. This can lead to a fragmented and unstable sense of self, or perhaps an unhealthy attempt to suppress his true nature in order to conform. This internal conflict is psychologically exhausting and deeply damaging to one's sense of well-being. The search for an authentic and socially acceptable masculine identity becomes fraught with anxiety and uncertainty. Tragically, this immense psychological burden can manifest in the most severe and irreversible ways. Rising male suicide rates in many Western countries are a stark and horrifying indicator that something is deeply and fundamentally wrong within our culture. While suicide is undeniably a complex issue with multiple contributing causes, the pervasive erosion of masculine identity, purpose, and value cannot be discounted as a significant contributing factor to this crisis. When men feel they have no inherent value, no clearly defined role, or no realistic hope for the future, a profound sense of despair can take root and overwhelm them. Society must begin to ask itself some very difficult and uncomfortable questions about how its prevailing narratives and attitudes might be impacting men's fundamental will to live. Events like Unmasked, which aim to redefine masculinity, often through an emphasis on vulnerability, highlight an understandable human desire for connection and authenticity. However, they also underscore the immense pressure men feel to change or adapt to new, sometimes confusing expectations. While vulnerability is indeed an important human quality, and its expression can be healthy, it should not come at the expense of other vital masculine strengths such as resilience, courage, or responsibility. The psychological well-being of men requires a more balanced and affirming perspective. It requires acknowledging the inherent value of their traditional roles and contributions, not solely focusing on perceived flaws or demanding radical alteration of their nature. A society that constantly undermines its men is, in effect, creating a widespread crisis of spirit and purpose. Foundations of Civilization: Masculinity's Role in Societal Construction. It is absolutely crucial to understand and appreciate the historical role of traditional masculinity in the arduous process of building and sustaining civilizations. This is not an appeal to a mythical or idealized golden age, nor is it an attempt to ignore past injustices. Rather, it is a sober recognition of undeniable historical realities that have shaped the world we inhabit. For millennia, the cluster of traits we commonly associate with traditional manhood, such as courage, resilience, ambition, and a willingness to confront danger, were absolutely essential for human survival and societal progress. The consistent willingness of men to undertake difficult, dangerous, and physically demanding tasks was fundamental to this development. Think of the builders, the explorers, the innovators, and the defenders throughout history. Their collective efforts laid the very groundwork for the complex societies we benefit from today. The provider role, so often maligned and misunderstood in contemporary discourse, was for centuries a cornerstone of family stability and community cohesion. Men's innate and culturally reinforced drive to work, to create resources, to innovate, and to ensure the material well-being of their kin was not merely a social construct imposed arbitrarily. It was, in many ways, a biological and societal imperative, deeply intertwined with the survival and flourishing of the group. This powerful drive fueled economic development, allowed for the specialization of labor, and fostered innovation. It enabled families to thrive, children to be raised in relative security, and communities to grow. To dismiss this profound historical contribution with casual disdain is profoundly short-sighted and indicative of a dangerous historical amnesia. The protector role, similarly, was equally vital for the establishment and maintenance of social order. Throughout most of human history, communities faced constant and often severe threats, ranging from natural disasters and famine to intergroup conflict and predation. Men were typically, and by necessity, tasked with the responsibilities of defense, maintaining order, and enforcing societal rules. This demanding role required immense courage, considerable physical strength, strategic thinking, and a profound willingness to sacrifice one's own safety for the collective good. Without this consistent protective function, societies would have remained perpetually vulnerable, unstable, and unable to develop. The relative peace and security that many enjoy today are, in no small part, built upon the often unacknowledged legacy of countless generations of men who faithfully fulfilled this essential role. Traditional masculine virtues such as duty, honor, integrity, and discipline were not arbitrary or oppressive impositions. They were, in effect, the cultural software that encouraged and guided men to channel their formidable energies constructively towards pro-social ends. These virtues motivated them to contribute to the common good, often at significant personal cost or risk. They helped to build vital social capital, including trust, cooperation, and a sense of shared purpose and cohesion within communities. While societies inevitably evolve and roles within them may change over time, we must be extraordinarily careful not to discard the foundational principles and virtues that have proven their immense worth over centuries of human experience. Civilization, it must be remembered, is a fragile and precious construct, easily undermined by carelessness or ideological folly. The indispensable man, traditional virtues in times of upheaval. The profound and enduring necessity of traditional masculine virtues becomes particularly apparent and undeniable in times of significant crisis and societal upheaval. When society faces existential threats, whether they be economic collapses, widespread social disorder, natural disasters, or external aggression, certain qualities become absolutely indispensable for survival and recovery. Consider the immediate aftermath of a devastating natural disaster such as an earthquake or a major hurricane. Who is often observed on the front lines clearing dangerous debris, courageously rescuing those trapped or injured, and working tirelessly to restore essential services like power and water. It is frequently men embodying traits of courage, physical capability, resilience, and a decisive willingness to take necessary action, often at great personal risk. These are not toxic traits in such critical moments, they are, quite simply, life-saving. In times of severe economic hardship or instability, the disciplined, resourceful, and responsible provider becomes an essential figure for families and communities. The man who can adapt to changing circumstances, work diligently and creatively, and find ways to support his family and contribute to his community's well-being acts as a crucial pillar of strength. His ability to persevere through prolonged adversity, to remain focused on his core responsibilities despite uncertainty, offers a vital source of stability when all else seems to be crumbling. This is not about clinging rigidly to outdated gender roles, but about recognizing the timeless and enduring value of personal responsibility, industriousness, and fortitude in the face of serious challenges. These are virtues crucial for navigating turbulent economic waters. Furthermore, when core societal values are under sustained attack, or when chaos and lawlessness threaten to engulf civic order, moral courage becomes a paramount virtue. The man who resolutely stands for principle, who bravely defends truth and justice even when it is unpopular or dangerous to do so, plays an irreplaceable role in preserving the moral fabric of society. This requires a strong and well-calibrated internal compass, a deep-seated integrity, and a steadfast commitment to something beyond mere personal comfort or immediate self-interest. Traditional masculinity, at its best and most noble, actively cultivates this kind of moral strength and unwavering integrity. It encourages men to be reliable pillars of moral character within their communities, a quality desperately needed in an age often characterized by moral relativism and widespread confusion. Therefore, the simplistic and often ideologically driven argument that traditional masculinity is somehow obsolete or inherently harmful fails to recognize its enduring importance, especially when serious challenges arise. A society that systematically discourages or pathologizes these essential virtues in its men will inevitably find itself ill-equipped to handle adversity effectively. It will lack the necessary resilience, the collective courage, and the steadfastness required to overcome significant obstacles and to rebuild when necessary. Rather than seeking to dismantle these vital qualities, we should be intensely focused on cultivating their positive and constructive expression in boys and men. The indispensable man embodying these traditional virtues is not merely a relic of a bygone past, but an urgent requirement for a robust and sustainable future. Reclaiming your compass, charting a course for authentic masculinity. So how can men realistically navigate these complex and often hostile societal changes without losing their core values or their sense of self? The first crucial step is to stand your ground, thoughtfully, articulately, and courageously. Understand deeply that traditional masculine virtues, such as unwavering responsibility, rigorous self-discipline, profound courage, and the innate drive to provide for and protect loved ones are not inherently flawed or toxic. On the contrary, they are potent sources of personal strength, meaning, and purpose. Do not allow yourself to be shamed or intimidated into abandoning them by fleeting social pressures or ill-informed critiques. Take the time to educate yourself thoroughly on their true meaning, their psychological underpinnings, and their historical significance in human societies. This will provide a firm intellectual and moral foundation. Secondly, it is vital to seek out like-minded individuals and supportive communities. It is immeasurably easier to maintain your values and your resolve when you are not isolated or feeling alone in your convictions. Endeavor to find mentors, genuine friends, or groups that respect, understand, and actively uphold the positive aspects of traditional masculinity. These connections can offer invaluable support, much-needed encouragement, and a vital sense of belonging in a world that often feels alienating. They can also provide a safe and constructive space for discussing the unique challenges you face and for reinforcing your commitment to living a virtuous and meaningful life. Remember, you are not alone in valuing these enduring principles. Many others share your perspective and are engaged in similar struggles. When it comes to navigating intimate relationships, be clear and honest about your values and what you genuinely seek in a partner. Look for someone who respects traditional masculinity in its healthy expression and who appreciates the unique strengths and stability it can bring to a relationship and family. Do not compromise your core self or your fundamental principles merely to fit a fleeting societal trend or to gain temporary approval. A relationship built on a solid foundation of mutual respect for authentic identities, including distinct masculine and feminine qualities if valued, is far more likely to endure and flourish over the long term. This may require considerable patience, discernment, and a willingness to be misunderstood at times, but the reward of genuine connection is worth the effort. Ultimately, traditional masculinity, understood correctly and practiced virtuously, is not toxic. It is, and arguably always has been, a foundational and indispensable aspect of a functioning, stable, and thriving society. It provides men with a reliable map for finding meaning, for making significant contributions, and for cultivating deep self-respect. Reclaiming these important values is not about regressing to some imagined past. It is about thoughtfully integrating timeless wisdom and proven virtues into the complexities of the modern world. It is about striving to become the best possible version of yourself, for your own sake, for the well-being of your family, and for the good of your community. Hold fast to your moral compass. The world needs good men, strong men, responsible men, now more than ever. If you're a man who's ever felt confused, rejected, or ashamed for being masculine, you are not alone, and you are not wrong. Let this be your reminder. Masculinity isn't toxic, it's foundational. If this resonated with you, hit that like button, subscribe for more raw truth, and comment below. Do you think masculinity is under attack? This is the Untold X, where silence ends and the real story begins.